Hey, everybody. Inside joke. Did anyone notice the hey, everybody, about 10 minutes into the new season of Severance?
Ooh.
Anybody? I paused it, recorded it off the screen, sent it on a group text to a group of people that we all say, hey, everybody. Inside joke. Anyway, hope you're doing well. This is Thinking Out Loud. My name is Andrew Siciliano, just a guy with a sinus issue in a town with horrible air quality. And I'm just a guy that is really happy that he was able to find egg whites today at the grocery store because there ain't no eggs on the shelves. They just don't exist. But I found some, and I'm happy. And I'm happy that you are here for another edition of Thinking Out Loud after the divisional round, after the CFP National Championship game, and ahead of the conference championship games, and in the middle of the coaching cycle. We are happy that you are here with us. Remember to like, subscribe, share, thumbs up, whatever you want to do, however you consume this television, radio product, podcast product. Pass it along to your friends and tell them that you love it. And if you don't, it's been nice knowing you. I'm trying to fight through this with my voice. I'm sorry if in advance I'm coughing. I don't have a cough button here at home. I guess there's a mute button. Maybe I hit the mute button.
Yeah, that
the
works.
mute button works, Sam Batesh.
That's cute. You could try that, but without the cough button, it doesn't feel quite as official.
No, not really.
Yeah, cough button's nice.
Yeah.
I'm glad you found your eggs. By the way, I know that's been it's been an issue.
Seriously,
Absolutely.
no eggs on the shelves here
it's
in my neighborhood.
Bizarre and very.
I met
real.
somebody for lunch today. Another neighborhood, grocery store next door. Look at them; they got eggs.
Not you. No eggs for you.
So found eggs.
No eggs for you.
Life is good again. And of course, I'm not talking about like eggs, meaning people without a Twitter avatar who send you mean things when you, God forbid, have
those
a
will
sports opinion.
Those will never run out, by the way, right? Those eggs will never be off the shelves.
I know you're a Russian bot. I mean, really, you could have chosen any screen name and you chose one that looks like a Bitcoin wallet at Twitter. Come on. Stop it. Anyway, I digress. Moving on. I want to begin here with a tip of the cap to the Ohio State Buckeyes. A lot of you don't like the CFP championship, but you know what? All of you wanted it. You all wanted the 12-team playoff, so you got it. A lot of you want to say, but you lost to Michigan. Guess what? They won the championship game, and a championship format that you guys have been calling for years. So a tip of the cap to the Buckeyes. I'm not a big Ohio State fan, but I respect the program. A lot of you guys know I'm a Browns fan. I'm a Guardians fan. In some sense, I'm a Cavs fan. I certainly want them to win, but I wasn't raised an Ohio State fan. My dad didn't go there. He went to John Carroll, then went to Northwestern. Didn't grow up in a Buckeye household, but sure, yeah, they won. Appreciate that. Respect that. All my friends and family who are Buckeye fans, I'm happy for them. And I'm happy for this team. Here's why. Number one, they're the most talented team in college football. They deserve to win. Number two, they're the best team. I'm glad they won. That the best team did rise to the top. Number three, they had the longest and most difficult road to get here. A 12-team format. They beat big boys. They got here. They won, and they deserve to win. They avenged their loss to Oregon. They didn't avenge their loss to Michigan. And for everyone who wants to go, but they still lost to Michigan on my mentions. Yeah, you're right. They did. But you know what? They won a national championship. And that is the most important team. Nope, they didn't beat the team up north, but they beat all the other teams needed to call yourself for the rest of your life a national champion. They will never, ever, anyone on that roster pay for a meal in Columbus again. Columbus has some good restaurants. They won. They did it, and they should be applauded. The one reason they should be applauded, I mean, there are a lot of reasons, but the one thing that stands out to me is that they talked it and they backed it up. They actually said out loud into a microphone, into a camera, it is championship or bust. And they didn't say that a week ago. They said that 5 months ago. They said from the beginning of the year, actually even before, go back to spring practice, when many of the upperclassmen that could have gone to the NFL, Emeka Egbuka, for example, Donovan Jackson, Jack Sawyer, Denzel Burke, when those guys came back to school, they got paid. Yes, that's how it works these days. Ohio State, right? Everything involved in Columbus did pay a lot of money to bring them back. Guess what? Plenty of other schools had their boosters and their NIL collectives pay a lot of money for their teams as well. Okay. But when they came back, they said it is championship or bust. Championship or bust. And then they backed it up. I did one Ohio State game this year. I did one in 23, but I did one this year. It was the Michigan State game. And during the week, you meet with the players, the coaches, whomever. And I was talking to Jack Sawyer, Captain Jack, number 33, who had the amazing scoop and score in the semifinal and played his tail off Monday night as well. He's the guy that, if you're watching the Ryan Day postgame interview, came up and crashed the interview and hugged Ryan Day as head coach, the man who recruited him to come to Columbus when his old man didn't want him to go, and he did, and he stayed at home. And I said to Jack Sawyer, hey, look, I got quotes here from Emeka Ibuka and Donovan Jackson, guys that, again, like Sawyer, decided to come back to school. And they said that they only came back to win a championship, and if they don't win the championship, the season's a failure. What do you think of that? He goes, yeah, it is. It's championship or bust. And this is me in this room on a Zoom talking into the same laptop. Other people on the call, Colt McCoy, Lewis Johnson, everyone on our great NBC Peacock crew. And he said that in scrums and during TV interviews as well. Yeah, this season's a failure if we don't win. And guess what? They backed it up. You don't have many of those these days. What about Tom Brady? Okay, sure. Yeah. And I'm not saying that this Ohio State team is part of a Patriots-like dynasty. Everyone says, hey, it's championship or bust. Few really are in the pressure cooker like Ohio State, where your coach's job is on the line, your legacy is on the line. That team never beat Michigan. If those guys didn't win, that senior class would have left without really anything to stand on. No gold pants, no national championship. They came back and they didn't beat Michigan, but they won the whole bleeping thing. They talked it, they walked it, they won it. Good for them. And Notre Dame, Marcus Freeman, Sam, much respect for that guy, former Buckeye, obviously. He's got that program going in the right direction. It's Notre Dame. Rarely is it going in the wrong direction. But for people that say that in this era, Notre Dame isn't going to win anymore, I disagree. I think they have the guy. They're going to win one of these days.
And there was criticism for the decision to kick late in the game, 4th and 9, maybe. But overall, for Notre Dame to be in this game, especially in the first season of a playoff, because Notre Dame has been accused of being placed ahead of where they potentially belong in the past based on the deal with NBC. There's all of those conspiracies. I'm sorry, but making it here in this format this season, as you mentioned what Ohio State did, Notre Dame also beat big boys to get here. And this mattered. And also in a game where, by the way, it was over. I mean, in the second quarter, you look up and the game is over.
They're
and to fight
15.
back,
it's done. They're down more than 15.
To fight back the way that they did in a game that you're down, 28-7, 31-7. I mean, that game looked over. And I'm sorry, it was absolutely a game down to the end. Also, what a moment for Ohio State. It's rare, but actually, when you think about it, it's not that rare. These championship games come down to a play, 3rd and 11 in an 8-point game where Notre Dame is crawling back. What a pass and what a ballsy call. I mean, a 60-yard passing play on 3rd and 11 is just as ridiculous as it gets, especially in college football, especially in a game that wasn't necessarily about plays like that for Ohio State, that didn't make necessarily plays like that through the season and in that game. Wow, for it to come down to that and for it to be that. What a game, what a moment to just say the championship hinges on that. That'll be the indelible moment from that game that we remember. And to your point, and for all of the eggs that we did find on Twitter that are coming after you for this idea about Michigan, not only losing to Michigan, but remember, certainly a craw in the hat for Ohio State to have to live an off season of Michigan as champions. And as much as you want to call them cheaters and the Netflix documentary about what happened with Jim Harbaugh and Stallings, etc., but that is a championship that isn't stripped away. That is a championship for Michigan. And Ohio State had to not only live with the idea all off season of Michigan being the champs, then on top of it, having such a special season, only a 1-point loss to Oregon at that point in time, thinking they're going to destroy Michigan. in a game that obviously Vegas saw that going
Should
that
have.
way as well. Should have, and by the way, didn't even. I mean, that is as ugly
Yeah.
and disgusting
Whatever.
a loss as you said, right? And the only way the only way to wipe out the fact that Michigan won it a year ago, the fact that you lost to Michigan in this particular season was to go out and win it all. And the fact that it was in this format, what they had to do, unbelievable. Two other things to point out, only big picture wise. SEC was not in the championship game for back-to-back seasons now. First time since 04-05 that happened. And also, tip of the cap, the Pac-12, which obviously is no longer, think about what Arizona State and Oregon did to be a part of this group.
Sure.
To enter new conferences and for the regular season to represent the Big 12 and the Big 10 the way that they did, to not even be in that conference the previous season, for the Pac-12 to disappear, for all of the story to be about USC and UCLA breaking up that conference, and Arizona State and Oregon show up in this incredible way on the national stage. We'll never forget the name Scattaboo, right? I mean, there are just moments now. And Oregon, obviously, the split with Ohio State, you'd want it the other way if you could. But I just wanted to say, wow, tip of the cap, Southern California, Pac-12, et cetera. But yeah, that was a big one.
Absolutely. And Ohio State won. You wanted your playoff, you got your playoff. So, college football fan out there, don't punch holes in Ohio State's resume. You wanted the playoff. The whole thing was to let deserving teams in that somehow got left out. Okay, well, they got in and they won it. So, tip your cap to them. Jeremiah Smith, and we saw it. I saw it in person in East Lansing with those two one-handed catches on the same possession that went viral. LeBron was tweeting about it that night, doing the game on NBC. Would be the first pick in the draft right now. It would not be Cam Ward. It would not be Shedeur Sanders. It would be Jeremiah Smith. He, along with Travis Hunter, the two best players in college football, full stop. And yeah, they went for the deep ball, which is great, and he caught it. I still don't get why Chip Kelly ran two keepers on first and second down. You got the best pair of backs in college football, and you ran Will Howard on first and second. But guess what? It worked out in the end. And the 9-month college football season is now officially over. The NFL season, however, is not over. It is also coaching carousel season. Ben Johnson is the new head coach of the Chicago Bears. It is official. By the time this pod is posted, there's a very good chance Aaron Glenn is the new head coach of the New York Jets. So the Lions will lose both coordinators. It is a price of success. I think both can be true. Number one, the Lions, much like the Patriots, let's say, I'm not calling Dan Campbell Bill Belichick, but much like the Patriots, have built a culture where they can promote from within. They have other good coaches on the staff, whether it's Kelvin Shepard or Antoine Randall, both of whom, like Dan Campbell, former players, whomever, like Aaron Glenn. They will be okay. But it is the price of success. It is a compliment in many ways that people want the coaches that you developed. You survive, okay? You'll be okay. Also, I think Dan Campbell is a coach that will attract other good assistants because people want to go and work under Dan Campbell. Remains to be seen, but that's what my gut tells me. As for Ben Johnson, I cannot overstate how big this is for the Bears. 2 years ago, they had the number 1 overall pick. They sent it to Carolina. Obviously, the Panthers took their quarterback. The Bears got DJ Moore. And then the next year, the Bears earned the number 1 overall pick and took Caleb Williams. 2 straight years, basically, the Bears had the number 1 overall pick. This year, the Bears were the number 1 overall pick. When you take the Patriots and Mike Vrabel out of it, Ben Johnson could have picked any job. He could have gone to Vegas. Tom Brady wouldn't even mention his name. It was like saying Beetlejuice out loud on the broadcast on Saturday evening. He could have gone to Vegas. He could have gone to Jacksonville. He could have gone anywhere. Ben Johnson was the belle of the ball. He could have picked any team. He chose the Bears. That's huge for the Bears. It's huge for Caleb Williams. It's huge for the city. It's huge for the organization. You're going to think I'm crazy. It's huge for Kevin Warren's drive to get a new stadium built. All of that matters because of Ben Johnson. Now, he's got to go prove he could be a head coach. Just because you could lead the offense doesn't mean you can lead the franchise. But people that know him, and I've met him once, I don't pretend to know him, say he's no BS and he's super smart and he works as hard as anyone. Those are all good qualities. Ben Johnson picking the Bears is a massive victory for the Bears. Off-season wins are nice. They now have to do it on the field. But consider the alternative and listen to sports talk radio in Chicago and the just pervasive negativity with the way they ended the season. Forget about week 18 with the 10-game losing streak. They thought that they were going to be left holding the bag that nobody wanted. And they would have had the third, the fourth, the fifth choice. They got the first choice. Again, taking Vrabel and the Patriots out of it. The Bears are a winner this week. Remains to be seen, Sam, if they're a winner in September or better yet, January, but they're a winner this week.
Think about the division, NFC North, this particular season. There was a moment in time, it feels like a lifetime ago, but you and I were talking about all of the teams in the NFC North potentially making the playoffs. There was that, last year, the AFC North represented and down to the last week had all of the teams viable for the playoffs. And there was a moment in time before that Hail Mary against Jayden Daniels, who I know we'll speak about, that the Bears were a in the hunt playoff team. And there was that moment. And now when you think about looking at the playoffs and looking at who did make the playoffs and thinking about looking up in that division at Lions and Vikings and Packers, wow, what a difficult task this is. The other thing is, think about the two options, not two, I know there were more than that, but there was the purveying thought, and you and I spoke at length, of course, about Mike McCarthy. There was the purveying thought that based on what the Packers have done to the Bears over the years in owning them, and a lot of that was Rodgers, but some of it was Rodgers and McCarthy, there was this idea that the Lions wanted to go with the guy that they know has been on the other sideline numerous times in losses. And McCarthy seemed like that choice. And instead, it's another team in the NFC North. They're going at the guy who hasn't necessarily done it yet with a ton to prove, but a more exciting choice. I think the unknown a lot of times is more exciting than the known when it comes to head coaching. I remember back when the Raiders hired John Gruden the first time, and he was just a special teams coordinator, offensive coordinator under Andy Reid, but we did not know a lot about John Gruden. It seems that those McVay again was one of these guys. Kyle Shanahan was one of these guys. A lot of the coaches that we don't hear a lot about end up being the more exciting choice. This likely will be that. I also want to go back and just remember that Hail Mary. Wow, did that just unravel these Bears? I mean, it was just, that's all I wanted to say. I mean, just what a shame. Eberflus, at some point, it was all looking up. There was the idea that this Bears team finished last season on an uptick. The Hard Knocks thing always gets people a little fired up. Eberflus looked like it was headed in the wrong direction. The Hail Mary, what happened on Thanksgiving Day, when you think back to some of the just gut-wrenching, awful moments for the Bears this season, you're right. They need a small victory, and perhaps this is that. But this division, this is going to be an uphill battle. I mean, the Vikings, we know the Vikings now. It doesn't feel quite the same because of the loss of the Rams, giving up 9 sacks. Darnold, we don't know what the future at quarterback, although perhaps J.J. McCarthy, the future for Minnesota there. Doesn't look like the Packers and Lions, though, are going away. And one other point that you mentioned about the Patriots losing coordinators year in and year out, I guess perhaps one small token for the Lions here to say that maybe it won't take quite as long as you think. The Eagles only 2 seasons ago lost both coordinators. They lost both coordinators under Nick Sirianni on a team that went to the Super Bowl. And yet, with Steichen and Gannon gone, that next season, admittedly, started well at 10-1, finished awful with an ugly loss in the wild card round to Tampa, but only 1 year later are now in the NFC Championship again. So, to your point about Dan Campbell, he'll probably get the right guys. Sometimes it takes a little longer than you expect, but it'll likely be here. And I have a question for you now on this one. Is there anything do you think Lions fans are wondering if Glenn and Johnson in the bye week, having the interviews, going through the process during the biggest week of this Lions season, both of their coordinators are interviewing for jobs or interviewing for the chance for their life to go in a completely different direction? Not that the task isn't at hand and Washington's right in front of you and it's a divisional game that you have. Obviously, it's the most important game for the Lions, but both coordinators are interviewing during playoff runs while we read a scroll on many networks that Cliff Kingsbury turned down the opportunity to speak about head coaching jobs during the week. And we know that Glenn and Johnson took those. And it's not just about the Lions and Glenn and Johnson here. I have this internal conflict every season. What's it like that your team is preparing for a game like this and your coordinators are speaking about changing their lives forever?
There's no good way to do it. Sure, it's a distraction. Anyone who says it isn't is a liar. No, I'm not questioning the job Ben Johnson or Aaron Glenn did. It's not, he didn't overthrow that ball to Quan Martin.
No,
he didn't. Okay, it's not his fault. Jared's got to own that one, and he knows that. And Jared didn't play a good game. It's a distraction, but there's no good way to do it. What are you going to do? Drop the curtain until the end of the Super Bowl or until a team is eliminated would be the way to do it.
I think eliminated feels right to me. Eliminated. Just maybe end of your season. End of your season, which doesn't mean you have to hold everybody back.
You got to realize the other owners don't want that. Okay. The other owners that fire their coaches go that I can't hire anybody. But you
can. But you can hire somebody that's
you can. I can hire somebody that no one wants.
Or you can hire someone that doesn't come in the building. I guess you could technically hire.
I can hire someone that no one wants.
Or you could hire. I can hire someone
that's been fired and is out of work.
Again, yes. So in this case, McCarthy would have the upper hand on Glenn and Johnson in this particular case, right?
Both are true. It's a distraction, and it's not going to happen. It's not going to change.
It only this weekend gave us the opportunity to look back on it.
There's Zoom interviews only.
I've prepared for a few Zoom interviews that have changed my life, and it's a lot.
I'm not saying it's not a lot. It is. Lions fans shouldn't be upset. It's the price of success. It's the way it bleeping goes. Right? It's the way it goes.
But the loss Saturday night brings it into question again, I think it now just allows it to be a conversation.
You know what? They didn't play well. Their team is banged up. Blame someone else. Stop complaining and looking for an excuse. All right? It's not an excuse. The other team played well. Your team did not. Not because Aaron Glenn had an interview. It's not. That's not the reason. It's a distraction. It's not the reason you lost. Both are true. Period. So there. Ben Johnson got the Bears job. A lot of people go, why didn't you go to Jacksonville or Vegas? Well, AFC West has the same divisional thing going like the NFC North. You got Bo Nix and Justin Herbert. That Mahomes guy who's in another conference championship game. So no, neither division is good. The Raiders don't have a quarterback. Taxes are much higher in Chicago than they are in Vegas. But you know what? It's the bleeping Chicago Bears, not a team relocated to Vegas, playing in a stadium that's beautiful with low taxes. But, a place in which, while you have great fans, you have a lot of the other fans in the building as well. I'm not saying that's why he didn't do it. But he went to the Bears. Okay. He probably didn't want to go to Jacksonville. Also, no state taxes. They have a great quarterback. But, you got a GM hiring his fourth head coach. So that has to factor into this whole thing as well. As for the games in the divisional weekend, Ravens won. I'm sorry, Ravens should have won. They're the better team. I think, not a knock on the Bills, but the Bills won because they made fewer mistakes, and that's why you win in the postseason. Lions made too many mistakes. Ravens made too many mistakes. Bills at home didn't make any mistakes. They played better. They won. They took it personal, as Gangstar and Guru once said, and they won to their credit. I hear a lot of people saying, well, Mark Andrews lost the game. No, he didn't. They would have tied the game. First of all, Josh Allen would have had 90 seconds. You got to bet against Josh Allen for recreational purposes only. If Mark Andrews had hung on to the ball, right? What about Lamar? He took the blame in the first half. He had 2 turnovers. One, careless in the pocket. The other one, bad pick down the sideline. He threw 4 picks all year. He turned it over twice. Ravens turned it over 4 times. Had nothing to do with the weather either. Both teams are cold weather teams. Both teams had bad weather and cold weather leading up to the game, so they both were well prepared. The Ravens played in a game that was just as cold week 18. So weather, nothing to do with it. Mark Andrews didn't lose the ball at midfield in the fourth quarter because of weather. He lost the ball because Terrell Bernard punched it out. Give him credit. Lammy didn't throw a perfect pass, but Mark Andrews should have held on, and they should have tied the game, but they did not. Mark Andrews is a great player who will be in the Baltimore Ring of Honor one day. I hope he could find some peace. I hope that Ravens fans and NFL fans and people angry at the outcome can show him some grace. He's a great guy. He's never been the Walter Payton Man of the Year there, but he should be. He's a pillar in the community. He's overcome so much with type 1 diabetes. He gives back. He's a gem. I mean, he's a gem, and I feel for him. It pains me that he didn't want to speak to the media afterwards. Not that like the media is, not that that's the ultimate test of courage. You get me? But he didn't want to do it Monday when they're cleaning out lockers either. He'll have his time and he'll have his form. Show him some grace, NFL fans. I thought Peter Schrager, our friend, did a great thing on GMFB on Tuesday, in which he spoke of Jackie Smith and Ernest Biner and Gary Anderson, others who have been amazing in their careers, but just on the biggest stage, they had a massive playoff gaffe that will always be associated with their name. Mark Andrews, let's hope this is not that moment, because I do think the Ravens are going to be good enough to get back. Lamar Jackson didn't lose the game, but he did turn the ball over twice. I'm not going to do the Lamar can't get it done in the playoffs hot take machine. But it is fair to say that Lamar hasn't necessarily played as well in the postseason as he has in the regular season. That is fair to say. He would admit it as well. And until he gets there, there's always going to be that talk that he's never going to get there. The Ravens, won 70 games the last 7 years, and they haven't been to a Super Bowl. It's much like the window Peyton Manning had with the Colts until he finally broke through. Lamar Jackson will finally break through. It's just not going to be this year. And the finality for both the Lions and the Ravens, and for that matter, the other two teams that lost this weekend, okay, the Rams and the Texans, the finality is what hurt so much, especially in the NFL, really in all sports. Like your team loses in the World Series, you know how hard it is to get back there? Man, it's hard. It is hard, right? Just you realize it's another year of your life until you can maybe get back here, and the work and the hours and the sacrifice and the dedication that it takes to get back here. You know how you as a fan feel, right? That empty, empty, empty feeling inside. Imagine how the players feel. It's bad. They'll get back, but man, does it hurt.
Lamar Jackson will be held to this standard. And what I loved about what happened on Sunday is what Lamar Jackson was at a podium. Of all the ways that people may pick at Lamar Jackson, the leader, which I think happens in the postseason a lot, he really led on Sunday at that podium. He took responsibility, absolutely. And as if he were a fan speaking, he used the language, as foul as it may be, that all of us were thinking at that time. And to exactly your point, fuck, man, I'm tired of being close. That's it. I'm tired of it being close. And what's great about it is he wasn't speaking about somebody else. He was speaking just as much about himself. I'm tired of being this close and being a part of two mistakes that led to this. By the way, his only postseason game losing to turning it over twice. That was his only playoff game ever turning it over twice, but it did happen. And then, of course, Andrews, the fumble and the missed 2 point. Of course, that's part of what he's saying. But he's just saying it hurts to be close and yet not getting, quote, over the hump. And we do this too often. Over the hump, we blow past what that really means. How hard is it to win a championship? The percentages are so stacked against you. Forget about that you play in a league with a dynastic team in the AFC and just in the league that you're in with Mahomes and Andy Reid, and before that with Brady and Belichick. The percentage chance of your team winning it just because there's 32 teams going for it at the beginning, that's what doesn't make sense about being a fan. The idea that we actually believe, Andrew, how old are you and I? And you were at a playoff game not that many months ago, dreaming of the Indians winning the World Series. And they were close. And you screamed in a game, tying a series.
Guardians.
You're right. Did I say it? Did I actually say it? I'll get it right with Washington and the NFC Championship Commanders. But yes, the Guardians. And that was a shout out to Bob Uecker, I think. And by the way, those who have not seen the Rinaldi and Bob Uecker from the All-Star game, if you've got it or have a chance, that's amazing. Tom Hamilton.
You were saying, I'm sorry.
I was only going to say Bob Uecker, by the way, for, and I know you gave quite a nod, but I was going to say Bob Uecker for those who haven't seen the Bob Uecker with Tom Rinaldi from the All-Star game. Pretty awesome to go back and see and relive his career. But my point being,
yeah, it's hard. It's depressing. There's nothing worse.
And again, so you're there in that moment, rooting like a little boy. You're a little boy all of a sudden, and yet what's so unfair about it is, it's nearly impossible. If you really think about the math on it, when a season starts, your team's not going to win it all. You have to understand. You have to wake up and tell yourself when the season starts, this team that I root for is not going to win it all. What sucks the most about the playoffs is that's when you start to believe. It's down to 8 teams this past weekend. 8. And you're so convinced your team is the one that's going to win it all. And even then the percentages suck. It's 8 teams and the percentages suck, especially because the Chiefs are there as well. And we have to give them a little more percentages because they do it so often. And yet there you are against Josh Allen and the Bills with a chance potentially to tie it up. And like you said, that wasn't going to win the game. It was only going to tie it.
Much like Ernest Biner's fumble was going to tie the game, not win the game. And there was no 2-point conversion back in the day. Just saying for those who don't remember.
You're right. And history has a way of rewriting it in our minds.
Totally
they would have won the game. They would have won the game.
The drive didn't win the game. The drive sent it into overtime where Rich Carlos would eventually miss the game-winning field goal.
It's devastating. I'm only glad that Lamar wore it. Really, really wore it and spoke to the emotion that any of the true Ravens fans really had, which was, fuck, we were close and it didn't happen and I'm tired of being close. But to that point, you brought up the one name that both Mark Andrews and Lamar Jackson and Jared Goff, Stafford doesn't have to have this feeling, but before that first championship, before it happens, there are many bumps in that road. And Peyton Manning and even John Elway, for that matter, and Dan Marino never got back, by the way, but Elway and Peyton Manning broke through. And that 2007 AFC Championship in Indianapolis, for those that don't remember, I believe the Patriots are 21-0 in that game that Peyton Manning eventually came back and won, then won the Super Bowl against the Bears, etc. We know the history at this point, but 3-5 in the playoffs, for Lamar Jackson to be considered a loser because of that, and I know there's a lot of that talk. Go back and look at the opponents with those losses. I mean, when you're playing in this round, you're not losing. You're not losing to this year's Carolina Panthers or this year's Chicago Bears. You're losing to the guy that's likely going to win the MVP. And you had it. By the way, you were trailing 21-10 at half and nearly tied the game when it was all after fumbling the ball with 8 minutes to go. It was close, and it was really an incredible season for the Ravens. You go back and look at it, it was an incredible season, and it is. You're right. The finality is just, and you're left with nothing.
And the finality, listen, this is not a, it hurts me more than it hurts you thing, but it's going to come off that way. So I'm warning you. The players, the coaches, the organization of your losing team that you root for, that you spend your time and money and life and energy, and you question when they lose at the end of every year, you go, why did I just waste 6 months of my life wrapping my emotional stability up with this? It hurts them just as much. It probably hurts them more because it's their livelihoods, right? Like they're going to get fired. Many of them will. Players, coaches, not every team, but contracts are up. You move on. Like, no locker room's the same. No organization's the same year in, year out. It just doesn't happen. So it's their livelihoods that they've trained their entire lives. They've worked their entire lives to get to this stage. They too realize how much hard work it's going to take to get back here. Actually, more work than it took to get here this year. It's going to take that much more the next year. It hurts them too. As much as you don't want to hear it, it hurts them just as much, if not more. I know it's not a contest. I always like to tell my significant other, it's not a contest here. It hurts them too. It's painful, but you got to pick it back up. A quick thought here. I know we haven't done Rams Eagles. Eagles won. Congratulations. From a Rams perspective, they were this close to, they didn't get the home game. They had to go to Arizona, and the Cardinals were amazing hosts. They were this close to somehow hosting the NFC Championship game as the 4 seed if they could have pulled it out. And they didn't. They played a good game. They didn't. In the end, Bo Limmer, a 6th-round pick who played admirably, played great all year when thrust in there as the starting center, was whipped by Jalen Carter, a freak of nature, on 3rd and 4th down. Jalen Carter, tip of the cap. You won. And Matthew Stafford couldn't get it done on those final 2 plays after driving him down there, had to take the sack, and then that ball to the sideline that Puka didn't get the flag on. It didn't happen, and the season ended. Heartbreaking for them because it was such an amazing group that rallied from down 1-4. And now with consequences, there are always consequences of losing. We spoke of the Lions' consequences. The consequences in LA are Matthew Stafford and Cooper Kupp's questions or contracts, rather, are very much in doubt. The Rams pushed up some of the guaranteed money that had been on Matthew's deal for 25 into 24, and now they're kind of at a crossroads. Matthew said he doesn't know if he's going to be back necessarily, wants some time to think about it. Quarterback market's going to be fascinating, and Matthew Stafford, his future is unknown in LA at 36, but he can still play. I think he proved that. He can absolutely still play. If the Rams don't want him, if they decide, and I don't have any insight here, that they want to move on, there are going to be plenty of teams that will want Matthew Stafford and pay him, and he would like a contract that begins with a number 5. So keep that in mind. And as for Cooper Kupp, he has maybe $12.5 million, something like that, guaranteed of 2025 salary, something like that. Not a lot of money, or maybe it's less than that. Maybe it's 12.5 and 29 on the cap, whatever it is. Cooper Kupp said on Monday he realizes that this might be the end of the road for him in LA. Doesn't know how and where he'll go next, if he has to go somewhere next. He'd like to stay in LA, and he knows that he can still play well. His numbers were down this year. He's had trouble staying healthy the last couple of years. He can still perform at an elite level. I know it. He knows it. The Rams know it. It just comes a point where organizationally you have to decide how much money are you going to pay to a wide receiver whose age begins with a 3. That's what you got to figure out. Let's look up Cooper Kupp right now. He is 31 years old. He'll be 32 in June, right in the middle of OTAs. So the Rams have to figure out what they want to pay and have to figure out how to move forward. So the Rams could look a lot different next year. A lot of teams could look a lot different next year. I'll tell you who won't. The Ravens. Lamar Jackson will be there. He is 28 years old. You know how old he's going to be week 1? 28 years old. He just turned 28 2 weeks ago. He, as he now is developed into one of the most accurate pocket passers in the NFL, will be able to play well into his 30s because he's still that accurate, and he'll be able to move. I promise you. Not like this, but he'll be able to move. There was this thought 5-6 years ago, you got to win now with Lamar. Who cares how many hits he takes in the run game? Because when he gets to 30, he won't be able to move anymore, and he can't throw. He's not a good passer, so run him into the ground now. That's changed. Now he can play deep into his 30s because he has developed and matured that much as a passer. It used to be Lamar would make the wrong read, but make a great play. Now he makes the right read almost every time and occasionally throws a bad ball, like he did with the one pick in the first quarter this past Sunday. He's going to be back, and they are going to be back. As for the Houston Texans, man, they look like a young, inexperienced team that just fell apart. Too many mistakes. Guys, if you want to scream and yell about the officiating, I get it. There were some bad calls in that game. Everybody saw them, but you can't blame the officials. There's a difference between biased and bad. Okay? That wasn't their best game, but that doesn't mean it was biased. Biased and bad are two different things. Okay? And I am so over, and I'm saying this right now, like, I don't need to post this clip here. This is just me talking. It's going to be on. Like, I'm not taking it out of the pod. I just don't want this to be a hot take thing here. I'm telling you right now, Sam, in the moment. Like,
yeah, Mark.
Biased, bad does not mean biased. Okay? Bad does not mean biased. There's no grand conspiracy here for the Chiefs. Bad does not mean biased. Do stars sometimes get calls? Yes. Have you ever watched the NBA? You know that league where they bounce the ball and they shoot it? You ever seen the NBA? Yes, stars get calls. You think Aaron Judge, right? Or Juan Soto don't occasionally get the benefit of that on the strike zone when they take a pitch? Sure, they do. Tony Gwynn did, Wade Boggs did. All the greats do. That happens. It's called human nature. There wasn't a memo from Russ from Bud Selig, okay? Or whomever is a commissioner of any league. I was going Bud Selig for back in the day there with Gwynn and Boggs, right? There isn't a memo from somebody up top that demands an outcome. Anybody who speaks into a microphone and tells you that, here's what you need to do. Click. Because they're lying to you. It is just silly clickbait nonsense. They're lying to you. Or they are just off their rocker. Difference between bad and biased. Also, by the way, the Texans, and this isn't biased, played a bad game. And you can't play a good game, or you can't play a bad game and go to Kansas City and win. Fun fact, you're going to lose every time, period. And as Daniel Jeremiah said, my final thought on that one, he tweeted this during the game, Sam, on Saturday. The Chiefs have gone from a team that was a dynamic offense and an opportunistic defense that made enough plays to a team that is now a dynamic defense and with Patrick Mahomes, an opportunistic offense that'll make enough plays.
Before we get to Jaden Daniels, yes, I wanted to jump in on this idea about the refs. I couldn't agree more with you. And it almost seems as if I should change the name of this text chain in my phone to conspiracy. I've got just groups of friends who are on this, and it comes up again. It came up again, even with Ohio State somehow. I mean, again, but remember this when you go back, if you still have this game recorded, or if you want to go back and look. The play that was most discussed in that Texans Chiefs game was the one that Troy Aikman spoke the most about, and it did not draw a flag. Remember that. The play in which Patrick Mahomes slowed up as he was going towards the sideline and was hit.
Yeah, he was trying to draw a flag.
Right, but it did not draw the flag. And Mahomes did a very good job of running full speed, slowing up at the right time, and drawing contact into the boundary.
And most of the time when he does that, he waits till you fly by, to use the old Top Gun. I'll hit the brakes, they'll fly right by. He does that all the time, and he gets 20 more yards.
It happened in San Francisco this season.
I talked about it this year.
Yes.
I talked about it with one of his former teammates. Like, oh yeah, he does it on purpose. Absolutely. They know it.
Yes. And he gained 20 extra. His longest run of his career was against the Niners this season. Go back and watch that game. He did exactly what you're talking about right now. He stopped, flew by, and got another 20 yards tiptoeing down the sideline. And this time he was trying to draw a flag, and it didn't happen. So what Troy Aikman is actually telling you there is, yes, perhaps he's using the rule book, which, by the way, the best players in the world use the rule book to their advantage. And look at any defensive pass interference penalty and think about what teams are trying to do in that situation. Yes, of course, and run back through the defender, et cetera. We all know that. But there was no flag on that play. And you tweeted out, of course, the refs are not missing extra points. And Fairbairn, by the way, has now missed.
Oh my God.
He missed in the regular season against the Chiefs and in the playoffs.
I got for that one,
I'm sure.
It's still going. People be like, oh my God, you're gaslighting us. No, I'm just being sarcastic.
Right.
Like gaslighting. Look up what gaslighting means. That wasn't gaslighting. There's a difference between biased and bad. And not everything. And can I just
or again, how about this? Even this, and look, biased and bad sounds good, but let's say this much. Not good enough. Even if you say that, biased and not good enough. And can we all admit that going into that game, none of us thought the Texans were better than the Chiefs? Can we all remember that? Nobody did. And we had seen it 3 weeks earlier.
Also going into this game, and this is my point with that tweet, okay, is the pervasive idea from the lunatic fringe that somehow there's a memo. Heck, the NFL did an entire ad campaign last year about the script. Like, shut up, people. Stop it. It's not fixed. First, I'm embarrassed that I'm even saying this. Like, just stop it. It insults everyone's intelligence, okay? But my point with that was it has gotten to the point that with every Chiefs game, good or bad, with every play, good or bad, you look at the social media reaction, it's always the same thing. Well, it's fixed for the Chiefs. Oh, the Chiefs. Oh, they're cheaters. Oh, they're fraud. They're fraud. Patrick Mahomes could drop back and throw the prettiest 80-yard touchdown to Xavier Worthy. And Jawan Taylor could line up straight, like on sides. All right. There's no cheat motion. Everything is clean. And the reaction's still going to be, but they're cheaters and they want them to win. Like, that's my point with that tweet. It is so toxic right now that nothing they do or nothing that happens in one of their games is discussed reasonably anymore.
And
so just give it a rest. Sam, I could do tweets about the Bills, and the Chiefs and Bills aren't playing. It's not week 11. Okay? I could talk about Josh Allen, talk about the Bills, I'll talk about Jane Daniels, talk about the Commanders, talk about Geno Smith and the Seahawks. And the comments are about the Chiefs. Like, shut up, people. Get over it. Patrick Mahomes is going to the Hall of Fame. Do you think the NFL gifted them 7 consecutive AFC championship games? If you believe that, go take your tinfoil hat elsewhere. Okay? Go take it elsewhere.
And please let's go on a time machine. 2023 season, not that long ago. What was the most egregious call that defined a regular season game last year?
I don't know.
Okay, guess what? It was Chiefs Bills. And do you know who it went against? The Chiefs. Remember
the and by the way, it wasn't egregious. It was the right call.
It was the right call, but remember, it could have not.
Tony was offsides,
and it could have not been called. And Travis Kelce made an incredible play to throw it across in Music City Miracle style, throwing it all the way across the field for an unbelievable, what would have been nearly walk-off touchdown victory for the Chiefs. And instead, flag on the field, bring the play back. Chiefs lose that game.
I disagree about egregious. That one had to be called. This wasn't like Jawan Taylor was 6 yards in the backfield lining up a tailback. Okay, and then, do we call it? No. He lined up off sides. It was boneheaded.
Yes. Although again, if the script were out, what would he have been told by the referee?
Okay. Again, I will not. It's insulting to the intelligence of the human beings who play the game.
It's totally absurd. And only one other thing about the Rams and Eagles. The Rams had their home playoff game for winning the division taken away. National disaster. Fires. Okay. It was taken away. They won a game in Arizona against a 14-win team that nearly won their division and could have been the 1 seed in the Vikings. Sacked them 9 times. Then went on the road in the snow and nearly, played certainly toe for toe and could have beaten a team that really blew them out in LA a month earlier and could have hosted the NFC Championship in a season that is crying for a positive story right now. Even with an Eagles hat behind me, I could admit that would have been an unbelievable story. And talk about writing scripts. You can go ahead and now, especially in this city of Hollywood, there are no scripts because that would have been the perfect one. To have the Rams hosting Jaden Daniels in the NFC Championship game 2 weeks after the city, for all intents and purposes, burns down to anyone who's watching the news, and having their home game taken away because of those fires. And then it could have been brought back for the NFC Championship and needed a 6 seed to be a 15-win Lions team for it all to happen and come into place. That would have been incredible. And I don't think either one of us should deny how unreal, of course, the Rams season was.
No denying here.
Yeah, and just what could have been there. And of course, I am happy as an Eagles fan. The game is in Philadelphia this weekend, but I could not have denied what a spectacular story that would have been. And the number 2 point that a friend of mine brought up, if there was an expansion draft in the NFL right now for a new franchise, as amazing as Saquon has been, I think the Eagles would protect, if they had to protect only one guy, Jalen Carter.
Yeah, he's great.
I think
he's great.
I mean, he's that.
He's great.
And a tiny tip of the cap to Isaiah Rodgers for stepping in for Quinyon Mitchell and scooping up the fumble by Stafford when they were clearly going after him all game once Quinyon came out of that game.
And fun fact, Saquon wouldn't be protected. Sorry about that.
It's right. No.
I mean, if you could only protect one.
If it was one, you could protect more than one, but
you wouldn't. There's no organization that would protect a running back.
Yes. And my friend Devo, as he's known, said that you would protect Jalen.
Would not happen. When the Commanders were beating the Lions, as a Rams season ticket holder, you're able to buy. I had my own, if there had been an NFC Championship game, tickets to the game as part of my season tickets, but you are able to buy more during the Commanders game Saturday night. I logged on and bought a second pair of tickets to a potential NFC Championship game just in case there was one. Sadly, there was not. And then Saturday evening, I got an email. No, Sunday afternoon, I got an email. This is great. I'm going to hold it up to the screen, and this will be our final thing here. If you bought the extra tickets, it clearly said if the game doesn't happen, you get your money back immediately. So an email from Ticketmaster. Andrew. Hi, Andrew. Unfortunately, the event organizer has had to cancel your event. Unfortunately, the event organizer has had to cancel your event. Yes, it is unfortunate that the Rams had to cancel the NFC Championship game, but they had a great year, 1-4 to this. Absolutely bleeping phenomenal, and I'm so happy for everyone in that organization. There are 2 games left, and then the Super Bowl. So, yeah, that's that. I will be in the box, Jim Rome, Thursday, Friday. If you're listening, if you somehow made it to the end of this 51-minute extravaganza, I'll be filling in for Jim Rome Thursday and Friday. Check it out on the radio, on the Fast Channel, on on the X, any and everywhere that you can consume the jungle. Yours truly, Pimp in the Box, back. Sam, I will see you then. Everyone have a safe and healthy week. And if you know where I could find egg whites in Southern California, please let me know. So long, everyone.